Count 1, malice murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 4, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 5, kidnapping with bodily injury. I find the defendant guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault with intent to rape. I find the defendant guilty. Count 7, aggravated battery. I find the defendant guilty. Count 8, obstructing or hindering a 911 call. I find the defendant guilty. Count 9, tampering with evidence. I find the defendant guilty. Count 10, peeping Tom. I find the defendant guilty. I certainly will allow both sides to look at this if you want to do it. The next step is sentencing. I'm prepared to go forward with that now, or if either side suggests that you need a few minutes, an hour break or something to do that, then I'll certainly do that as well. Consider that.
We have one moment.
Sure. I understand.
We'll come back for sentencing.
I understand. We will recess till 12:30. Recess till 12:30. Will that work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
And there you heard it. 10 counts. Guilty from felony murder to peeping Tom. Jose Ibarra, who took the life, guilty. Convicted of killing Laken Riley. Guilty on kidnapping. Guilty. An illegal alien in this country should never have been here. Crossed our border, broke our first law of sovereignty, and eventually reached this victim, Laken Riley, a Georgia University nursing student. We have seen her family grieve. We took parts of that on Friday when the officer who found her and tried to resuscitate her to no end. We saw 27 family members. We knew they were in the courtroom. The mom could not stay. The dad stayed. The stepdad stayed. They were weeping as they learned more details about what happened to young Laken Riley by a monster who sat and listened into what was being said the entire time at this short trial through a translation device that you see him wearing there on the left of your screen. Phil Holloway, former assistant district attorney, former police officer, and legal advisor to Georgia's Sheriff's Department. Phil, this case went by quickly.
Yeah, Harris, it sure did. And, you know, that's not really surprising considering they waived the jury. That certainly streamlines the prosecutor's evidentiary presentation and all aspects of the case. You know, the judge made a decision here. He took 15 minutes, and he came back, and look, the evidence was overwhelming of guilt. So it's not surprising to me that the judge made his decision so very quickly. What is surprising to me is that we have a case like this in my home state where, you know, if anybody richly deserved the death penalty, it would be Jose Ibarra. But the current elected district attorney, now she's out of office at the end of the year. Deborah Gonzalez, however, is a so-called Soros DA, and she made the decision some time ago that her office was not going to seek the death penalty. Now, her office has very little to no success at all prosecuting successfully any kind of felony trial, so they brought in an outside prosecutor from the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, a woman, Sheila Ross, who's very well capable of trying a murder case, any case, certainly one like this one, and did a very good job. And now the judge is left with really one task left to do, which is to sentence Ibarra to life without parole.
All right. So life without parole. You've given us Deborah Gonzalez's role in all of this, and that sentencing will come, it sounds like from what you're saying, before she leaves elected DA office. You mentioned that she's a Soros disciple. If you know, she follows him, paid for, so on and so forth. We've done a lot of research on George Soros's big hand in our legal system across the country through, you know, avenues of donations and so on and so forth, things that are set up for him to do that. My other question, though, is a legal one, or my other point is a legal one. There were several counts of felony murder.
Yeah.
With one death. So can you break that down a little bit? Guilty on all of those felony murder charges, but how different was each one?
Well, when the felony murder is essentially a death that occurs during the commission of some underlying felony, and by law, Harris, those will all essentially, they will merge, if you will, into the broader malice murder conviction. So he's only going to be sentenced once for murder. Those other counts will merge, with the exception of some of them. I think maybe the kidnapping and others don't. But in any event, the murders will merge, and he's going to get life without parole. That sentencing will probably happen as soon as they come back at 12:30, as the judge said here in the Eastern Time Zone.
That fast?
So yeah, he's going to be off today. He's ready to pronounce sentence. He essentially said that before they took a break. I think that the reason for the break is because family members and others have a right to be heard. They get to do what's called a victim's right of allocution. They get to address the defendant. They get to address the court. And I think the prosecutor has to take some time with them to decide who might want to speak and who's able to do it. A lot of people just can't really handle it, and they don't want to speak, but others do want to speak. And I imagine we're going to hear some people speak on behalf of Laken Riley. The judge's sentence is a foregone conclusion, but under Georgia law, under the Crime Victims Bill of Rights, they have that right, and the judge will afford them that opportunity to address the convicted killer.
So, Phil, I want to know the greater implications of this, because we have a lot of conversation going on right now as we've seen an uptick in illegal aliens being involved in violent crimes. And so, and we know there's been a huge, to the tune of more than 10 million of people flowing across our border, and a high percentage are here crawling across, not going to checkpoints, breaking our first law of sovereignty. But does this verdict, guilty on all charges, have implications for any of those dim-led cities, which now have put out new welcome signs to people coming across the border and wanting to officially call themselves sanctuary states and cities? Does this send a message to people who flow there and have already committed crimes entering the country previously in their countries? We don't vet them. We don't know anything about them. What does this say to those Democratic leaders who want to do that now against Trump?
They had better heed this, because if you watch the evidence in this case, you know that this is an individual who was at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City, and he and his acquaintance, his colleague, whatever, they obtained a humanitarian flight that brought them from that area in New York to the migrant, shelter, all the way on a humanitarian flight paid for, I'm sure, by taxpayers, and it landed in the Atlanta, Georgia area, where he went over there. And he, according to the evidence in this case, Harris, he essentially went out hunting, for someone to sexually assault and eventually to kill. And to me, it doesn't sound like it's his first time ever doing this, because of the way it was sort of planned and deliberate. So these sanctuary cities who think that they're going to be able to get away with harboring individuals like this, I'm sure the incoming administration is not going to permit it. They can bluster and they can threaten things, but at the end of the day, they must cooperate with, or at least not stand in the way of federal immigration authorities who are going to do their job, and I think start cleaning out some of these folks that came here with ill intent on their mind when they came here allegedly seeking sanctuary.
I can only imagine what the family is going through right now. That mom, dad, stepdad, and all the rest of the 27 loved ones, her close friends, her roommates, some of whom testified in this case before that judge who reached every single count of guilt against the man on the bottom of the screen. I pray for them. I pray for those surviving family members.